We are now live. Let's see if anyone, how quickly anyone comes in. Fair bit of interest in this one so far, so
that's good.
That is good. That is good. That is good. We like to see that. Okay. Someone's watching on YouTube too, which is magnificent. So I'll just put the 1 minute timer on. No, they've left already. Oh, there we go.
Bye.
So they can watch this at a later date, yeah?
Yeah. What happens is the stream. Hello YouTube, you're back. That's good. We're just letting everyone sort of come in, settle in. So what happens, Brenton, is this streams out and people can watch it on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch live, and they can watch the YouTube feed on the web page, which is what I've been promoting. Then after that, I download it, and hello, we've got number 2. That's nice. After that, I download it, edit it, take out all my ums and ahs and repeated words and all the crutch words that we all use. Pretty up the... oh, good. We've got a comment too. So, look. Ramona Sandonart. Are you friends with anybody? Brenton, Sally, or just someone interested?
Not that I recall, although I do have a really bad memory of people that are following and
I'm usually pretty good at it. I'm not sure, but I'm usually pretty good at remembering who's following me. But
I try. Just before we sort of really kick it off, if you've got questions or comments or anything, that's just whack them in the comments, and that's what I'll do. I'll throw them up, and we'll address them or talk about them if they need to be. Okay, let me go back. Well, that's good. I'll just put the countdown timer on, which is 1 minute, and then as that runs down, I'll kill that, and we'll go. We've got a lot of visuals, so it's good. It won't just be our talking heads on the screen, which is.
So can you see the people that are tuning in on your page, can you?
I can't tell. So the people who are watching, I can see the live viewers, and I can see what platform they're on. I can't see who they are or anything like that. But if they put a comment in, I get a little notification, and we can address that. Sure. Okay, so we're down to the tank. We are live. How about I do the introductions? That might be good.
Mm-hmm. There he is.
Hello.
Hello, bird nerds. Thanks for joining us. It's the Bird Emergency. I'm Grant Williams. I am a bird nerd, and today I am a connoisseur, a critic of art, and it's marvellous to be able to be joined by some very, very talented folk, and one in particular that I've been following and sort of bouncing messages back and forth for quite some time, since Tegan Douglas from BirdLife in WA said, hey, you got to have a look at this dude. Have a look at what this guy can do with parrots and honeyeaters on the side of a wall. So it's an absolute pleasure. I think let's go there. That's a bit nicer. To introduce Sally Edmonds, who is up there waving. There we go. And Brenton See. give us a wave. Oh, and
Hi, Brenton.
and me.
How you going,
I'm
Sally?
Grant.
Yeah.
Now, Brenton, you're in Fremantle. Sally,
Oh, yeah.
are you in Perth or are you in the regions? Tell us about where you're.
I'm in Kalamunda.
Now, where's Kalamunda compared to Perth City for
In the
those of
hills.
us who don't know?
Up in the hills.
Okay, and
In the
Brenton, you're in Freo. So, question for both of you: are your studios at your houses, or have you got a dedicated workspace where you head off to work?
You can go first, Sally. Mine's probably a bit longer.
I'm actually sitting in my studio right now. So I'm very, very lucky. It's in my house. It's nice and big. Big workspace, but also another room adjacent where I can. I've got a hanging system, so I can do exhibitions and things here as well. And it looks out onto my garden, and there's big trees, lots of birdies. So I'm happy.
Terrific.
And I
And
can work
Brenton,
in my
Brenton, what about your workspace?
Yeah, so my situation has changed over the years. Before murals, I actually did paint canvases. So I had a studio inside the city area, just in a warehouse, only because it was the cheapest thing I could get. If you want something nice that overlooks a bit of greenery, you know, the cost goes up as far as the studio goes. That's for sure. You might as well buy a house. So now, yeah, I'm in a studio in inner city Fremantle that overlooks some of the historical streets. But this is just where I come to do admin. Really, as a mural artist, I'm out and about most of the time. So I do admin in here, and then sometimes if it's a rainy day like it is today, I might get a chance to catch up on some old commissions that are on panels. You can probably see a few behind me. But yeah, this is just where I answer my emails and do my concepts, basically. So it doesn't need to be anything special.
Terrific. Well, what I'd like to do, because we've got the two of you here, is, if you don't mind, Brenton, we'll just do a bit of an introduction into some of Sally's work and
Yep.
Sally's interests, and then I'll come back to your sort of the work that I've seen of yours that I want to feature, and then we'll talk about what you do, and then how it can influence conservation,
Yeah,
which
sure.
is really the angle I want to take.
I mean, I'm keen to hear about Sally's work as well. I haven't heard a lot about it, so that's why I thought it'd be great to get Sally on so I can learn a bit as well. So,
Okay,
yeah,
well, Sally sent me some images. So for those of you who don't know about Sally, let's sort of get to know a little bit about Sally. Sally, who's your friend there in that picture?
That's Fluff Bum. He lives at Carrikin in Martin in the Perth Hills. He's a rescue black cocky that can't be released because he's just not able to be out in the wild anymore. So he lives at Carrikin, and they let me go and visit. I'm helping them out a little bit with print sales for like donations. So they let me go in and hang out in my happy place, which you can see how happy I am. They're lovely, and he's very romantic. But the first time we met, he actually flew at me and bounced off my head. I don't think he liked my camera, but this last time I went to see him, he was very romantic with me, as you can see. He's a lovely boy.
Is it?
Oh,
Was that?
that's Randy.
That's who?
Randy. I don't need to say any more about Randy. he's very dominant in the aviary. That's the interactive aviary at Carrikin. So there's a lot of birds in there. Big aviary, very tall, very high, and he's the boss, I think, in there. And he puts his mark on you as soon as you go in. Maybe it's just me. I don't know, but yeah. I just let him wear himself out, really.
All right. Well, we'll talk about your interest in Carrikin a little bit more, but I just want people to be able to have a look at the style of art that you do. And here's two of the shots that you've sent me. Obviously, Galahs and that's a barn owl, yeah, and then something which I I really like is that the way you do these portraits, these intimate portraits, and there's obviously an emu and whitetail black cockatoo, or what, Carnaby's, I think, is that one?
That's Carnaby.
Yeah,
That one's Kep.
yeah.
He lives at Kanyana, which is in Lesmurdy. They do some not exactly the same as Carrikin, but it's definitely a rescue centre. And he's a year-old boy, very lovely. Exactly as I portrayed him is what he's like. Very funny and very smart. When I'm looking for reference, this is what I'm looking for. So I took the photo of Kep. I didn't take the one of the emu, but I searched for that image for about a year to get exactly the right one. So I want that feeling you get from those pictures, the portraits, being intimate and connecting to it.
Okay. We'll do a bit of an introduction of Brenton's work, and then we'll have to talk about the collision of photography and art as well. But I'm just going to run this compilation video that I put together. Brenton, it's quite quick for these clips, but if you could perhaps just tell us where each one is, and then I'll run it again if we need to talk about the subject matter. But I think it's all pretty self-explanatory about what it is. I might narrate it as well.
Yeah. So this is Lake Claremont. So this has been an area that has had a lot of new growth added by a lot of the people volunteering here. So the Friends of Lake Claremont. This is the Perth Zoo. I did this for the Western Ground Parrot breeding program that they've got there, which a lot of people don't know is going on. It's kind of behind the scenes and kept a little bit secret because the birds need to be kept aside. This is a white-cheeked honeyeater on some parrot bush. This is inside someone's property in Fremantle. So this is out in the backyard, just a tiny little backyard. They didn't have much to look at. So this is a barn owl named Chips. So this was the barn owl that was the mascot for native animal rescue in Malaga. Unfortunately, it passed away. So I did a portrait of Chips for them. And this is a spiny-tailed gecko that I painted at, what's it called? It's an environmental centre in Rockingham. I think that one is a moaning frog from memory. And that is painted on the side of a shopping centre in Atwell. Which I've been beautifying over the years. I've gradually taken over. So this is a Western quoll and a Western spinebill with some
Banksia grandis. Yep.
This is at a land centre in Malaga, and this is a bobtail with some silver princess from memory.
Yeah.
On
Eucalyptus cassia.
On the front of home. And then we got some red-winged fairy wren with some blue leschnotia. And this was painted on a fuel tank for wormhole. So kind of a tricky subject to work with, but yeah, kind of worked onto the three sides. It's just so you can kind of admire it from wherever you were positioned. Yeah, and these are placed all around the southwest. And a sacred kingfisher with some Swan River myrtle. I think I did Swan River myrtle. I can't remember if it was that or Geraldton wax, but I think maybe Swan River myrtle. And that was on the front of a residence. And this is a mixture of different flora and fauna found around the Albany region, and this is inside of a property down south in Albany. So this is the living room. And then we've got a Western yellow robin and a
Jackie Whimper.
Yeah. Some of these are old. I'm just trying to remember. This is a recent one of a female red-tailed black cockatoo amongst some married that I've just done in Manning, a suburb just out of Perth, and this is the front wall of their house. So the entrance to their house is just on the right. So they see this as they come in into their home every day, which was quite fun to do. They've also planted a lot of native species. And here's a male red-tailed black cockatoo that I took a photo of at a park, Sampson Park, just around the corner from me. So I didn't have to travel far for this one, but he posed nicely for me, and it's a pose that you don't really see very often. There's a pair of carnivores feeding on some Norfolk pine. I like this photo because it really shows the closeness between pairs that you don't always see, which is nice to capture. And I just put this up last night on Twitter just for something different, but this is a red-eared firetail that I photographed in, I think it was Denmark, either Denmark or Albany. I was going between the two. So, yeah.
So there we go. So I wanted to put the photographs in at the end. Is that someone at your place doing the?
There might be someone reversing a truck.
Yeah, I think it sounded like it. So there we go. So I want to get away from all of those and back to us. There we are. So I wanted to put the photos at the end there because without having spoken to both of you about how you do your creating, obviously photography is how you get your inspiration, and perhaps a bit of a template for the images that you have to then get from your eyes into your head and then out onto the media. Is that how the process goes, or have you got an idea first and then you go looking for a subject to photograph so that you can then get all the details right? Sally, do you want to start with that?
It can be either. Quite often I've got an idea in my head for a really long time and I have to look for the reference material for it. Other times I'll just be trolling through, or I'll go and take a load of photographs and one will stand out to me, and then I'll just use that. And actually, funnily, I was having this discussion. I had to do a talk the other day because I don't hide the fact that I use photographs for my work, because but a lot of bird artists particularly don't admit to using photographs because it's kind of frowned upon. And I was pulled up about it by someone and they didn't agree with me using photographs. But I actually think that certainly, obviously for the detail, it's really important, but also photography can give you things that your naked eye can't anyway. Like a lot of the time I really trained my eye to see colour in a certain way. You probably have too, Brenton. And you'll get things from photographs that you wouldn't see with your eye, like on the curve of a beak, you might see. Sometimes you'll get an edge of magenta or a bright turquoise colour, you just wouldn't see it. So I love using photographs. I honestly couldn't really do what I do without them. But I use Photoshop a lot. So, for example, I had a picture in my head for a long time of a big flock of galahs flying. But I wanted to have a feeling of depth. So I found photographs. Someone actually let me use their photographs. And I put it all into layers. Each galah was a separate layer, and the further back they were, the more blurry they were. And I built up the image in Photoshop first because I knew what I wanted, but funnily enough, I can't really visualize it so much. I've got a vague idea in my head, but I need to actually see it. So I built the picture in Photoshop first, then I translated it to, actually that was a big painting. So yeah, photographs are absolutely vital to what I do, certainly. And I always wonder when people say they don't use photographs. I think, well, what are you doing then? Chasing them around, or I don't know. How you would, or working from stuffed birds. This is pretty horrid. So yeah. But do you take your own photographs, Brenton?
I used to take pretty much all of my photographs. And then when my daughter came along, a little bit of my, I guess, photography time went into
Yeah.
that are shorter time. So, so nowadays, if I finish a mural early and I have a few hours to spare, then I might go out with my camera.
Yeah.
It's kind of just finding the time now, if I've got a spare moment. But any bird photographer knows that you might spend 4 hours looking for something, and then you're not just going to leave after 4 hours. You're going to spend as long as you can with that bird to take photos. So for me to tell my wife I'm just going to go out for a couple of hours to take some photos, I might spend 2 hours just walking through the bush and not seeing anything. So I've got to be quite choosy. But yeah, when I did have a full day free, I would go out and target certain species that I wanted to paint. So if I had a client contact me about something that they wanted painted, then I would take that opportunity to go find it. So I'd do the research into where it lived, and then the closest place to Perth that I could see it, and then I would go off and try and find it.
Yeah.
You both have a style that is what realistic, I would say, but you're not trying to represent that this is how it really is. I mean, there's obviously distortions and exaggerations and emphases that you are trying to get across. And Brenton, you are very detailed with how you approach the vegetation and as well as the birds and the animals. You're reasonably botanically correct, which is a bit of a feat. So how much time do you spend getting to know the vegetation and the animals and the bird species, their habits, their the kind of habitat that they exist in, before you try and commit them to a wall or to is it masonite or canvas when you're doing smaller commissions? What materials are you using as well?
Yeah, so wall surfaces can be absolutely anything, and that's where I think that's where my style comes into it quite a bit. So a lot of the time I have to pull back on a lot of the detail depending on the surface. So I've worked on corrugated surfaces, I've worked on rough brick surfaces, and if I was to treat that like a gallery artwork, I would be there for weeks and weeks and weeks. But I have to treat a mural as in an artwork that you see, like for instance from here. So if I was to stand here, it needs to look good from here. That's how you treat a mural. Generally, you're not going to stand a metre away from it to take in what you're seeing. You want to stand back and take the whole image as a whole. So that's what you have to do with murals. You have to stand back and say, yeah, that looks right, or I need to add a little bit there, or move something around there. So yeah, for me, it's capturing the shape first of something, because at the end of the day, if as a photographer or a bird watcher, it's the shape of something that catches your eye first, and the colour. So if you can get the colour and shape right, you're on the track to getting the likeness there. So these are a few photos. Obviously, I haven't taken these. This is Ross McNiven's photo of the ringtail dragon there. I do approach a lot of photographers, generally through Flickr. I find Flickr has the best photos on there. And then I will approach the photographer and ask for permission if I can use that image to paint from. And majority of the time they will say yes, so that's great. And then I make sure that I credit the photographer in any posts that I do, because at the end of the day, their photography is their art. The image that they put up on the internet is the image at its best. So they've done a lot of editing. They've put a lot of time in the field. They've perfected their craft. And I think as someone that has, I'm a very amateur photographer, but as someone that has taken photos, I know how much time goes into it. So I definitely don't take the photographers for granted, and they need recognition.
Oh, and I mean, that's something that I think people like doing what I'm doing need to be perhaps a little bit more aware of, and really try to let people understand and exploit the commercial value of these images. They're not just pretty things. There's a purpose behind making them, and we'll talk about that when it comes to sort of your art in a minute. But it it's a significant investment to create these things, and I just want to draw attention for people here. This tank, I think. Can you see the mouse doing its thing there, Sally, or not? You probably can't. It's probably not being broadcast. But in the upper centre right, you can see the basket of the scissor lift, or so I mean this is how it's done. Yeah, it's a very significant investment to get. I mean, you've got to hire the equipment, you've got to be insured, you've got to have someone else there being your lookout, your safety buddy, and probably working with a reference drawing, I would imagine, that's gridded out. Brenton, we might talk about that.
Yeah, so I generally don't grid any flora. I try and be a little bit free with the flora. So a lot of the time, I'm working from a bunch of photos to create the flora in the images, and I'm choosing one flower out of one photo and then another stem out of another photo, and kind of merging them to frame, I guess, my artwork in a way. So if I was to paint directly off a photograph of a bunch of flora and just stick it onto a mural, it's not going to work. So I've got to make sure that it's framing the subject matter the right way, and it's working right, but also looks like it's something that could be coming out of the ground at the same time. So so at that scale on the tank, I did grid the flora on there just so that it was easy to work with the proportions, because when I'm up there, it takes a long time to get back onto the ground and have a look at what I'm doing. So working with the grid takes away that time. But yeah, generally, if I'm working ground level, I don't need to use a grid for flora. I doubt there's going to be too many people that are going to correct me when a leaf is 2 millimeters longer than it should be, or something like that. Different for birds. Birds will, someone will pull you up on something wrong with a bird.
Well, I don't want to talk too much about how the sausage is sizzled or how the sauce is made today. That's a whole nother episode. But I'd promoted the whole idea about your art, and now we've introduced the kind of art that you both do, and how it can influence conservation. And Brenton, you do a lot of stuff which is in public places, as well as doing private commissions with those homes and fences and courtyards and building interiors and whatnot. But they're still being seen by the public. Some of your commissions with the zoo and whatnot are with conservation-related causes, and I don't really want to talk about that because they're already in the know and in the circle. But I'm interested for both of you. Do you think that when people like and appreciate your art when they first see it, that it then has the effect of causing them to go and learn more about wildlife or vegetation, habitat in general? Or, Sally, with the rescue centres that you're really interested in, do you find that people will then become converts to the cause? Perhaps, Sally, if you can go first.
Yes, certainly. I mean, with what I do, I try to sort of, the ethos of my work is to get across that birds aren't just birds. It's Lots of people don't really see birds the way I do. I live with 8 birds, so I know that they're all very different characters, and the same goes for the birds out in the wild. They all have their own personalities and relationships, and lifelong companionship with a mate and things like that. And so I try to get across most of the time in my work that there is a character behind that bird. It's not just a pretty bird. And I think people really like that. I use a lot of eye contact in my work, so the bird's actually looking at you while you're looking at the bird, and people sort of connect with it. They say, well, I feel like I really feel a character from that bird. So that piques their interest. They might not be interested in a bird at all. And I think that if people are interested in a piece of art, they might not be into birds or wildlife or anything, but then that leads them to perhaps look at what you do, go onto your Instagram or your Facebook, and that's where I can then, I don't do much. I donate some money and I promote if I can on my stuff, but everything you do helps. So I'll go on my Instagram and I'll go to Karakin, or I'll promote Karakin on there, or Kanyana, and just say, you can go and do this. If there's a picture of me with Fluff Bum, you can do that. You just can go down to Karakin on one of their tours. You too can go and have a lovely black cockatoo on your shoulder and interact with them. And that certainly has been interesting to a lot of people. I think people listen to their friends, and I have a really good relationship with a lot of my followers. And I think people listen to their friends more than they listen to, being told what to do. So if you're saying, this is really cool, you could do this, they're like, oh yeah. And then they want to go and try it. And then someone they talk to might want to try it. All these little things all add up to raising awareness. And even if it's only helping the rescue centres, it's a start. But then people start thinking, well, what else could I do? Could I plant stuff in my garden, or can I have one of these nesting boxes, or donate money? So it all helps. I think that what we can do is certainly, it mightn't be huge, but it certainly makes a difference, which is all good. So
yeah. Brenton, before we come to you, I want to follow up with something Sally said there. When you said, Sally, your followers, you reference your followers. Now you're using Instagram, and Brenton's on Instagram and Twitter. I'm wondering whether over time, and as your work gets better known and social media helps that occur, are you aware of any of your followers that are sort of becoming real warriors for the cause, like that they move from being sort of appreciators of your work, and then they become bird watchers, or that they become volunteers at the rescue centres, or that they develop a deep interest in a certain habitat type, and they join a friends group? I mean, I'm wondering whether you are aware of people shifting their attitude after being involved in your art.
I don't know if it's after being involved in art, or if they were already that way anyway, and that's why they're interested in bird art. So can't really answer that one. I'd like to think so. That would be nice. I certainly have directed people that way, but whether they go that way is up to them, I suppose.
Do you see a substantial growth year on year in your social media following, like in the Sally tribe? Yeah. It's weird, actually. I was really struggling with Facebook. Was fine. Well, if they follow you in Facebook, then they tend to stick around. But Instagram was a real slog to get it up to. I got to 10,000, but since I hit 10,000, it's just taken off. And I think I've gained another 300 in the last couple of weeks. So you're like, what's going on? But I do interact a lot with people. If anybody ever comments, I've only ever had one troll, and I think that's more about them than me. But I always reply, I always respond, and I love that, actually, because it's such a solitary pursuit being an artist. Although I'm never alone with 8 birds and 2 dogs and a husband. It's lovely having that interaction with people. I really enjoy it, and so
I tend to spend a lot of time on it, and I know a lot of them. You know, they use these funny names for their Instagram names, and I tend to know a lot of them by their real names. So I remember, so I will reply to them, and I really appreciate everybody that follows. It's amazing, really. It's a fabulous resource.
Yeah.
It really is.
Brenton, can we take that up? That social media topic up.
Yeah.
How have you been? How long have you been actually doing the Twitter and the Instagram? That's the first question.
The Twitter is very new. The Twitter is and you would probably know this because you probably would have commented or shared one of my first posts. So Twitter is super new, and that's only because I found out recently by another artist that she was using it and getting a lot of help from it. So
yeah, Twitter's a great community. Yeah, really good.
But the thing I like about Twitter is, I can follow people that are in the field doing work, and that's the stuff that I find interesting, because then I can learn about new species that are needing help that I wouldn't otherwise know about, and just following their journey, because I'm jealous. I want to be out in the bush doing what they're doing, so I feel like I can kind of follow what they're up to, and I almost feel like I'm out there with them. So that's what I like about Twitter, and it takes a lot of the crap out that you don't want to see. Instagram and Facebook, whether you like it or not, you're exposed to stuff that you're really not into. So it doesn't matter if you're following or not. You see so much that, and some of those things can get you down. So I just want to be around positive stuff that I like looking at. So at the end of the day, I don't want to be on social media. I wish I couldn't be on social media, but to do this for a living, you need to be.
Yeah, I'm a bit like you, Sally, in that I love the positive stuff. I basically don't do Facebook. I gave Facebook away. I mean, I post all the bird emergency stuff to Facebook, and maybe once every 2 months I'll go and have a look if I've got any comments or anything. But I interact on Twitter all the time, and I'm trying to do Instagram, but it's a matter of time for me. But Twitter is where I hook up with bird people. I get slapped around the chops if I make a mistake, which I do, because I produce so much content, because now it's easy to do, and I'm one of those believers that if I can talk to someone every day about birds and about conservation and put it out there, eventually Google and the algorithms will find it. So, throw another podcast out. Is it perfect? No. Is my Twitter feed perfect? No. But I think it's better. Look, actually, I'll raise something with you, Brenton. You made the comment about the Western ground parrot and about how they're a bit secretive and all that. And they are. I can't get an interview with them. I can't get an interview with Taronga Zoo or Melbourne Zoo about captive breeding programs and all that. And I think that's mad. I think that's absolutely mad. It's public money they're spending, right?
Yeah.
No one's expecting it to be perfect. If they make some mistakes, well, there's no handbook on how to save something. Western ground parrot's a really interesting example, that it's so localised now that one disaster could wipe them out, and having captive populations is a sensible idea. But if you can't find more than one place to put them back, then they just become a bloody cage bird, don't they? That's my view. And I used to be a cage bird enthusiast when I was a kid.
Yeah,
so I'm not down on that. But I don't think anyone knows how much any of these programs are costing. And this isn't a criticism. It's just a thought. Hey, if for the same money, we could have 5 biologists working full time in the field, right? Learning more, or buying land that we could then let regenerate over 50 years or something to perhaps, maybe these things aren't possible. Maybe they are, but I don't think there's enough known. But building a building, securing the land, building a building, building a resource centre for basically what we're doing now, talking to people, spreading the word, is something that deserves to be questioned. And my thought is that it's something that's easy to do. The rest of it is hard to do, and it seems to be an easy out. Like, so that's really getting to the point of what I wanted to talk to you guys about, Brendan. If you are painting the Western ground parrot on a facility about the Western ground parrot, is that more effective than if you were to do it on an overpass of a freeway, or on the on a wall at the entrance to a busy shopping centre? Where do you reckon art is more effective in communicating conservation needs and the plight of an endangered bird, animal, or plant? Or vegetation community. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're right. So for me, the way that I've gone about my work for about 4 or 5 years now is I will paint the species found within 15 kilometres of the location that I'm painting. So for the Western ground parrot, that's where they were doing the breeding program, and a lot of people wouldn't know that. But if they were to go, I added a little bit of info to the right-hand side of that mural that people could look up. And it also has a link to the Friends of the Western Ground Parrot website. So they can go on there and they can find some information out. And then if they went on that website, they would also see that the Perth Zoo is doing the breeding program. So in a way, it's kind of seeing how many people are going forward to read the information, because that's what I always find interesting, because I'm always at the middle ground, whether I put information written on a mural and then risk it changing the way the mural looks by adding all that text to it, or leaving it out and then putting all that information on my social media. So as far as letting people know where these animals are found from the murals, I try to include that on my social media. And that has worked in a few instances. So if I paint a mural in a suburb of a bird that a follower hasn't seen before, I've had people ask, what reserve can I see that bird? So that in itself is showing people's interest from the mural to go and see something they haven't seen before. And I think knowing that they can see things that they haven't seen before so close to them is quite an excitable thing. I find it exciting knowing that there's so many species I've yet to see in the wild that are still so close to home. It's almost like collecting trading cards or something. Like, it's the excitement of not knowing what you're going to find. But so, yeah, I'm trying to raise awareness of what we have basically in our back pocket, because if people don't even know what we have down the road, obviously they're not going to know about the Western ground parrot. And I think the way that the world works is, if it's not an animal that's going to bring tourism in, it's just going to get kicked to the side. It's not important. If it's not going to bring in tourism money, it's just not important, and it will just go. So the Western, there may be a day that the Western ground parrot isn't here anymore, but when it comes to getting media coverage, I hear a lot about the night parrot, but I don't hear too much about the Western ground parrot. And as far as numbers go, I would imagine that they're quite similar.
But can I contend something about that though? Because
Sure.
I'm a bit older than you, Brenton, and
You are, yeah.
and when I was a kid, a bird nerd, the night parrot was, does it still exist?
Yeah.
We'd given up on the paradise parrot, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But does the night parrot still exist?
Yeah. I am
So
aware
that
of
was
that history. Yeah.
so that was
Yeah.
so that was the big mystery. And then
Yeah.
when I become in my 40s, there's a fella who says he's found it and nobody believes him because he's
Yeah.
pulled a con once before.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then so everyone go, oh well, it's probably gone. And
Yeah.
then somebody there's photos, and it's from the guy who's supposed to not know any, to not be believed, and it's all true. And then a whole bunch of people secure research money, and they go looking. And good on them, James and Nick and Neil and everyone who's been out doing that work. That's good, but that's why you're hearing about it, because there was a bloody controversy. If there wasn't a controversy, mate, look, I spoke to Neil Hamilton. Definitely, but I spoke to Neil Hamilton, and we've got his podcast will be coming out sort of soon. But he's been talking to the traditional owners in parts of the night parrot range. Yeah. They knew it was there. Nobody but nobody who'd published a paper had talked to them about it. So it was all just anecdotal and whatnot. But hey, without the controversy, I mean, bristlebird, hello, scrub bird, hello, not sexy, no, equally as under threat as the Western ground parrot.
More and more photos of them recently, though, which is great.
Well, good, but that really highlights the whole point that little brown birds, equally threatened, equally as important, in the same locations.
Yeah.
Where's the interactive information centre for the brown bird?
Yeah.
So
I think it's all about, if I could find a way to make a lot of these little brown birds look amazing on a mural, I would. And that's the unfortunate thing. I'm kind of dictated by what the client wants in a way, but at the same time, I can use a little bit of my knowledge in swaying them. So if someone's wanting a rainbow lorikeet, I can push them to a red-capped parrot. I can say, have you seen this bird before? This bird comes around some of your locations that you're in. Why not go for this? This is an alternate, but it is a native. It's meant to be here. So why not pay this? So, but a lot of the little brown birds, I can't help but think, then at the end of the day, they're not attractive enough to keep.
Well, it's one of the reasons I wanted to really talk to you about this stuff, Brenton, was that people are seeking you out to make statements, right? There's a lot of your commissions, and this isn't a criticism of the people who are engaging you, but there's a real look at me factor, right? If it can be seen from the street, it's like, oh wow, look at this, It's not a new Porsche, but it's something that people will, that people can see and will notice and will talk about and whatnot. So what I'm interested in, because I think we just take it as given that your stuff is noticed and it gets people talking in the neighbourhood, but doesn't move the needle for the individuals. Do they actually then go from thinking it's nice and pretty, and this is the whole, Gouldian finch versus little brown bird kind of issue. Do they then get involved in conservation or support other things? This is where the question really is, does art move the needle?
For me, it's about making that individual feel special about what they've got on their wall. So I have to leave them with a little bit of education about what they've had painted on the wall. So if they came into it hiring me just because they wanted a pretty picture, I've got to make sure that they leave with a little bit of knowledge. So, our black cockatoo species are always going to be the birds that people want because they love them. But funny enough, a lot of them don't realise the status that they're in. A lot of them, because of all the things happening outside of around the southwest area, these birds are moving into residential gardens and things, and people just think, oh, we're lucky, but they don't realise why they're here. So for me, if I'm going to paint one on someone's wall and they say, oh, it's my favourite bird, it flies over my house every day, then it's up to me to say why it's flying over their house every day. So, it's all the logging that's happening, they're getting kicked out of their natural habitat, So for me, it's a kind of a combo deal. You're getting the mural, but I need to share a little bit with them. Otherwise, for me, it's like, what's the point? Like, for me, I mean, I love doing what I do, but it needs to serve a purpose. And that's why, like with Sally, like following Sally's work and her donations, it started getting me thinking, because I do get a lot of the comments in public forums saying it's a shame that these murals are going to be the last thing remaining of the species, and that's the opposite of what I want. So if I'm going to profit off these birds, it's not right. For me, it's not right. So I need to be giving back, which is what I'm going to start doing.
Yeah, well, there's some all sorts of ideas about that, Brenton, which we can explore in another time. And I really do want to get you back when we've got some time to talk about the nuts and bolts about how you do the work, because I know a lot of people have said to me, how do they do it? And I put up, I do piles of tweets and I put out piles of information about birds and work really hard doing it. I took a photo when I was on my way to a meeting. So I just went past, saw this mural not on the front wall, down a little alleyway, took a photo, just whacked it up because I'm on Twitter, I'm walking down the street, I'm always on Twitter. So flung it up there. My most interacted with tweet in 10 years, and something like 24,000 tweets or something. And it's a picture of a willy wagtail, a magpie, something else. I'm pretty sure a rainbow lorikeet was on it. Give them a plug. Melbourne Murals did it. But 100 podcasts, talking to experts, talking to conservationists. I'm lucky to break through for 300 things in 2 years, and is hundreds and hundreds of people wanted to reshare and like and whatnot something which is inanimate birds, which kind of is really frustrating. I don't know whether
it frustrates me. Honestly, it does. When I don't know if you saw it, but the recent Gardening Australia segment that came out, I wanted them I didn't want them to put the silos in, because I didn't want that program to be labelled as the silo artist, which is what happened. All the features, all the comments were, did you see the segment on the silo artist? Like I didn't want that. Like it's great that I did the silo, and what it raised awareness for was the main part of that silo. So I painted the red-tailed phascogale on that silo, and the reason why they didn't extend the land to the left of that CBH building was because they were breeding in there. So I wanted that to be a big part of the silo, and let people know, like, that's how connected I want my work to be. Like literally, they weren't allowed to build right here because this animal was right there. So, so I understand that they wanted to use the wow factor. Like when it comes to this kind of work, wow factor gets coverage, and even murals, that's still a wow factor. And like you were saying about the tweet, if it's bigger than an A4 sheet of paper, it's going to get a bit of wow factor. If it's bigger, basically if it's bigger than real life, that's what it comes. And if it's colourful as well, it draws your eye. And that's with social media. If you're posting a text tweet or something, it's not going to get seen over a photo. So for people to be spreading any information that's necessary to be read, you almost have to attach a photo with it, because it's people scrolling through. They're not going to stop.
That's right. That's right. And unless it's politics snark, and you're in a hashtag that people are there for it. But yeah, you're quite right. If you just, I mean, you're new to Twitter, Brenton, but I've been on it for so many years, I've got a couple of like personal.
I've got FOMO. I'm going to have to tweet now. I think.
But I used to get people years ago when just on a personal thing, I'd put things like, I just had an amazing coffee, best coffee I've had for 3 weeks. And I'd get, loads of engagement because it was new and it was cool and it was fun and whatnot. Yeah. And now it's just full of PR dross and, promoted tweets and all that kind of stuff. But look, Sally, I want to ask you your passion is the rescue centres and wildlife rehabilitation and release if possible and whatnot. Yeah. How do you feel when someone with Brenton's profile now is getting so much attention, and we're not saying it's a bad thing, so hey, ease off everyone, but that something, well, actually I'll frame it a different way. I
don't think you can class what Sally and I do in the same sort of thing. I think
no.
You performance art in a way. And Sally's the artist.
You're not in the same playpen. But but what I'm interested in is that how can some art get impact and some doesn't, and what do you need to do, or what could be done in an art sense? I hate using the word product and whatnot, but it's to increase the awareness and perhaps the financial health of something like a wildlife rehabilitation shelter or a that's probably a really good example. There's one here not far from my place that struggles to get money to feed the animals. But then Dr. Harry visited, and couple of an hour in primetime TV really moved the needle.
Here, it'd be nice if he went to Carrikin or Kenyana. That'd be good. Maybe he has been. I don't know.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you, and perhaps try and lead the discussion in a slightly different place. What's the best way for your art, Sally, to help? Like you've got to sell stuff for yourself to eat, to pay the mortgage and everything. But what kind of ways? Let's put it a different way. Let's take it away from just the centres that you're really invested in personally. What kind of way do you think an artist who is doing work like yourself can have an impact on conservation and public awareness?
I think personally, I'm not going to force any sea change. I'm not going to be a big cog in this whole thing. Sometimes I've thought about this a lot, and I sometimes feel a little bit helpless in the face of the destruction of habitat and things like that. See, I'm a Brit, so for me, as I've said to you, coming here, I'm absolutely astonished by everything here. Is so dramatic. The birds, the plants, the land is just wonderful to me, and I'm astonished that we don't preserve it enough, or as much as maybe it would be nice if we did. I don't talk about things that I don't know about because I'm older and wiser, but I think that's my impression. But I do know that I might not be able to make a big difference, but I can make a difference. I can do what I do. I'm only one person, and I'm just a bird artist. I happen to love birds. And so for me, I did used to volunteer, but this business took off so mad, especially the last couple of years. And I thought, well, how can I help then? And so for me, the way I've done it is to actually have a relationship with Parakin particularly, and just recently Kanyana. And I'm hoping as well to get something going with the Western Sea bird rescue as well, where I will actually either go in and photograph their residents and draw those, and then I'll sell prints through my website, and any sales that go through my website, they get the profit. So it doesn't cost me anything. I can't afford to support it, without covering my costs. I pay for my prints and, this and the photography. I wear it, but obviously I keep the original. And they get the profits that way, and it comes and it goes. It's kind of sometimes like lockdown was ridiculous. I just sold so many. There was one in particular of a pair of black cockatoos from Karakin. It just kept going out the door. It was fantastic, and that's what I can do. And the other thing is, like, through our social media, I'll say I love a bit of social media. I will just plug them every time I can, and anytime I go there and people ask me questions. There's my three main questions. How long did that take you? What pencils do you use? And where's this bird? Where is this bird? Can I go and see them? And so I tell them all about it, and I say, yeah, you can go here. Any money you put in is going to help. And it's just a small thing. It's not, I'm not going to make a massive change, but I can make a change. And it's a community as well. I talk about followers. It's a community. We all talk about these things, and awareness is raised. And, as I say, you do sometimes feel a bit helpless, but at the same time, every little helps. It's like climate change. You might think to yourself, well, what's the point of me doing anything if China aren't going to stop belching out smoke and this, that, and the other? But everything you do in your life, it does make a difference. And it's the same with this. So if you plant some nice stuff in your garden that's going to be nice for, our native birds, or put water out in the garden, or put a nesting box up, or there's so many things, or donate to your local centre, or volunteer at your local centre. It all helps, and everybody's talking about it. That's the thing. We need to be talking about it because it's so special. The wildlife here is so special.
I can't let the opportunity go when you've raised those three questions that you get asked all the time. So tell us about the cocky there and those three questions. How long did it take?
Well, it depends how you look at it. You could say it took me 3 weeks, so you could say it took me the last 7 years of, honing it and getting it right. I think I don't rush. I'm an old lady now, so I learned how to be patient and slow down. And so I just put the podcast on, or the audiobook, and I really take my time over it. And so that guy was probably about 3 weeks. But it doesn't matter to me. I just when you're at the beginning, there's not much to start with. There's just an outline, really. You just have to chip away at it. This one here is nothing to the one I'm doing now. What I'm doing now is mammoth. It's just chipping away, and and pencils. I've got a list copied in my notes for every time anyone asks me what pencils I use.
Well, perhaps you might share that with me, and I'll pop that on the on the webpage, because people will be wanting to know what are the materials involved in that cockatoo picture we've got up on the screen.
So with that guy, I work on mat board, which you use in picture framing. The little window you get inside the frame, and your artwork's behind it. Just flip it over and use the bad side. And I do my sketch, which is very simple. It's no point putting any detail because it's going to get all covered up. And then I prime that with a primer, which is a nice rough surface. And then it's just blocks of colour. So that guy was pretty much black all over, apart from his beak and his little cheek patch. and then it's fixed. And that's using, these big pastels like this, so the proper pastels. And then I fix it with a spray fixative, and then the rest is done with pastel pencils and colour pencils. And colour pencils, if you can see my pencils, they cover a whole desk. I've got hundreds and hundreds of them. And and I just work out from dark to light, from blocks of colour right up to the fine detail. And that's about it, really.
Now, because I had the picture up of the cocky and the emu, can you show us that pastel again so that people can actually see how big it is in relation to your head? There we are. Okay. Fantastic.
These are my favourite. These are Art Spectrum extra soft square pastels. They're lovely and they're really good for coverage. But also, right at the end, when I've done all the other bits, I'll go back and I'll look at it and think, well, is there a really nice dark point in there, and is there a really nice bright point in there? Because you don't want it all mid-tones. And you can't get a white pastel pencil that's really white. So I'll use one of these, but in the white, just to finish off. So on that black cocky, that would have been some of the ends of his little feathers and any really bright white highlights, because it's really important to have those really dark points and really bright points in a picture. Otherwise, it can be a little bit samey. So, yeah, and that's that, please.
Yeah, very good. Now, I just want to take a minute to acknowledge Naomi Bergerson on Facebook, who gave us a nice like. So, and that was a long time ago, but I didn't get the opportunity to pull up the discussion
and
there
Ramona,
for a minute.
Ramona, thank you, Ramona. She left a nice comment for us.
Where are we? Let's talk about that. Ramona Sandon art. So I'm guessing that Ramona is an artist. So Ramona said, as an Insta follower of both Sally and Brenton for years, their information and enthusiasm have made me learn much more about my local birds. Now that's really nice. What the whole point of starting the discussion is, and I appreciate the comment, Ramona. It's great, but to both of you, and perhaps Brenton, this might be a little bit more in your wheelhouse, but are you getting asked by organisations, perhaps companies or government affiliated bodies, Quangos or NGOs and stuff, to support them and do stuff for them? And what I'm trying to tease out is most of your work is commissions from private organisations or individuals who are happy to pay you to do the artwork and see it as that kind of transaction. What I'm wondering about is if people and organisations that are not profit makers or just private enjoyers of art, appreciators, connoisseurs, whether with the profile comes people wanting you to support what they're doing, their good cause or their purpose for being. That, in essentially, are people asking you to give them a discount?
It does come up. So with my work, I have to basically let people know how much a mural is going to cost, and there's a minimum, and generally people want a lot for a little, so they want to get a mural for my minimum cost generally. So it's up to me to make a vibrant mural for them for the amount that they want to spend. So then there's the people that come along and say, I've got this budget, which is generally, if it's sometimes it's a nice budget, and they say, love what you do, we respect how you do it and the research you put into it. We want you to have fun on this wall, and this is our budget. So that shows me that people are involved in what I'm doing, and also possibly the story that comes along with it. I do have people that will sit with me while I'm painting, and we will just have conversations all day. And those conversations will go into conservation and go into talking about species that live in the area and stuff. And so it's those conversations that become part of the mural. And those are the clients that I love to work with, because I want to be painting for people that are invested in what I'm doing. When I'm doing work for commercial businesses and on the sides of apartment buildings and things like that, I have to go into it realizing that they're just beautifying the side of a building, and that's all it is to them. So for me, it's quite important to get some interpretive signage set up as part of that mural. So that interpretive signage will have the species names and possibly the locations close to that building where people could see them. So that at least it's not just a pretty picture, it is something that people can get a bit of knowledge from. So even if they're walking past that building, going to the shops one day to grab some milk, they might come past and say, hey, what's that sign there? Have a bit of a read. And then, the name of the park that's around the corner might stick with them. And they might say, oh, I'm going to grab my kids one day, and, on Sunday afternoon, we might go down to that park and have a look. I didn't even know that park was there. So maybe even if it's something as small as that, small as someone going out to a park, that's better than it not happening for me anyway. So, the more that I can do from just a pretty picture, that's my aim, is to get the most out of just a pretty picture. So whether that be interpretive signage, whether that be sharing a bit of knowledge, whether that, it's got to, the mural itself has to give something.
Thanks, Nicole Brown, for a bit of Facebook love as well. Appreciate that. Again, a reminder for those of you who are watching on all the platforms, Twitch, Facebook and YouTube, thanks. If there's something I'm not asking that you want to know, in the comments, stick it in and I will put it up and we'll talk about it. Brenton, with your profile growing, and obviously you're basically just working in your local hood, so you can become a bit of a big deal. Have you been approached to do work that you just weren't prepared to do for any reason?
Yeah, I actually turned down a lot of work. So I probably turned down, I would say, one laughing kookaburra a month. And I would probably turn down about 3 rainbow lorikeets a month.
Can I just stop you there? Sorry, Brendan. I just want to stop you there because people who are not in Perth will go, what's he got against kookaburras? Why won't he paint rainbow lorikeets? The floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, so obviously those two species are not native to Western Australia. The laughing kookaburra was, from my memory, brought to Western Australia into the Perth Zoo and bred up to to help out with the snake issue, was my knowledge, and they were released to take care of I'm assuming a while ago we had a lot of snake issues, so that, to my knowledge, that's why they were released, and they've basically taken over. People love them. Like I understand why people love them, but they do a lot of bad things to our native birds. So they are a murder bird. They are. Yep. And you could probably say that the rainbow lorikeets are a murder bird in a similar sort of way as well. So the rainbow lorikeets, they take over a lot of other species' nests. They're very aggressive. And if you were to go down to any of your local parks, I guarantee you will see nesting rainbow lorikeets. I guarantee it. You probably won't see many other nesting birds in hollows. You'll see rainbow lorikeets.
Yeah, they dominate, and I don't think a lot of Australians on this side of the continent are aware of what a problem they are in Perth and
Yep.
in New Zealand as well, where they have established, and they are a terror. They're a bully, and they dominate for nesting sites. If a pair can't get hold of a suitable place on their own, the group will come down and mob competitors and whatnot. So they outcompete all the bigger birds for hollows, and they're a bit of a drama, aren't they?
And I will share this knowledge with a lot of the people wanting them in these email inquiries, and they'll say that's all good, but I love that bird, so I want you to paint it. Yeah. And I'll just say, well, I'm not the artist for you then. It means more to me to say no to the job than do the job.
That's fair in WA. I do stuff for people over east, so I'm allowed to do a kookaburra.
Yeah. I also get approached to do things outside Western Australia. So I don't do that. So I'm only into promoting the species of WA inside of WA. So I'm fortunate to know a few artists over at the East Coast. So if I do get inquiries, I will generally give them to them.
Okay.
You're fortunate. You're in the fortunate position that you can.
I know. I know.
Say no. But the other thing I was interested in, Brenton, with the profile that comes from, when you're on Gardening Australia and having your name on walls in public spaces so that people start to chase you down. Do you get far more offers for commissions now than you could possibly do?
I've just recently hired an admin assistant, and that's changed a lot for me. So
lucky devil.
I know.
Yeah.
So up until then, it was basically I would answer emails any chance I could, and that kind of means that a lot of the inquiries would just get forgotten about. So that's not what I want. I want everyone to sort of get slotted into the calendar and have their time. So now I'm able, with social media and all the other platforms, there's inquiries coming in from so many different places. Gardening Australia and those sorts of programs are amazing, but at the end of the day, if I myself couldn't be on the program, that would be where I'd want to be. I want the artwork to be doing more than just me getting limelight. So that's why I'm trying to give the art, give the art a meaning and have it do more than just get shared around the internet and get hundreds of likes like that. That's great, but if it's not doing anything for the wildlife that I'm painting, then what's the point?
Yeah, but it might be just one person who looks at it and says, "Oh, what's that? I'm going to look that up."
Yeah, and that's great. But yeah, I would love to see art saving species. That's at the end. That's the end goal.
And
that would be nice.
and I want to follow up on that bit about doing something for the species and whatnot in a minute. But Sally told us about how long it took and what she used. I want to throw that kind of question at you, Brenton. Just let's look at the tanks, because we get an idea of the scale of them. There we are. So, and of course the methodology involved in it. How long did that project take from you to, getting the Crimson Chat, photograph the dragon, obviously you've taken some photos of the plants. You've come up with your concept. How long does it take to actually put it together?
A lot of the photos of the flora I didn't take myself. I did take photos when I got up to Tom Price. I found a lot of these species close to the location I was painting, which meant that I was able to have different angles. So then I kind of switched from the flora that I'd found on the internet to some of my own photos, which was quite handy because they actually, some of them looked a little bit different up close, and that just may be the light that the photos were taken in, but working under the Pilbara sunlight, the colours really showed, so that was really great. But so there's a lot of time in the research phase. So iNaturalist, eBird, FloraBase. These are a lot of the websites that I like to use to really pin down the location of species. But then also just contacting photographers. So Ross McGibbon, who took the photo of the retail dragon there, I just queried him on what I could find around Tom Price and told him where I was painting, and he gave me all the knowledge I really needed. So, there is time that goes into just talking to some of these people that have the knowledge. I hadn't been there before, so why should I just pull species out of my head that don't make sense? So there was a lot of research, and there's always a lot of research that goes into a lot of the murals that I'm doing, because I don't want to get it wrong. I want it to be right. So the murals themselves, from memory, it was 24 days, I think it was, for both, to complete both. So quite different to the way Sally works. And obviously I was talking about stripping the murals down and simplifying them. And if I didn't do that, and if I made them photorealistic, it just wouldn't be profitable for me, because I would be losing money by spending that much time on a project, and the budget's allowed for the projects. So I have to take a lot of things into consideration as far as how long something's going to take, and I need to know how long something's going to take before I even put up a price for it. So that just comes with time spent on painting different subjects. Nowadays, I'll know how long something will take.
What's the story behind those tanks at Tom Price? Who was that? A private commission, or is that like at a public body?
Yeah. So the unfortunate thing with that specific mural is it's not visible to the public. It's inside of a Rio Tinto mine site.
Okay.
And that in itself rung alarm bells for me, even painting at a Rio Tinto site.
Yeah, well,
I do a lot of clearing. So,
let's hope that they don't blow up.
Yeah. Yes, let's hope that. I mean, yeah, they do have a lot of land, which is not, they got a lot of land for that. I don't think they'll be safe if something does blow up, which is, it is a shame. It's such a tricky thing, At the end of the day, some murals. So that mural itself was a gift to Rio Tinto as a celebration. I can't remember the exact celebration, but it was basically a gift to finalising the project. So that site was just about ready for handover, and this was the mural that was saying, "Thank you for everything. This is our gift to you." Hence why it's only seen inside of the mine site.
So can you clarify that? Who was giving it to one of the biggest companies in the world? Hello, you really need a gift.
Yeah. I wasn't told all the small details, but it was one of the management groups that was working for Rio to set up the site.
Okay,
it was their gift to Rio Tinto. So at the end of the day, a few of these projects, I have to understand that if I said no to that project, they would have approached someone else to do a mural on that. And that mural would not have served a purpose.
And I guess there's the other side of it too. The mural's going to get done. It may, as if you can convey a positive, worthwhile message out of it, it may as well buy your wheat bix for a few months as somebody else's who isn't as committed to doing other things.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it supports you, but
Yeah.
but it's a compromise you have to think about, isn't it? You have to think
It is.
about it and
It is.
make the compromise to do it.
Yeah, yeah, and I am doing more and more projects for commercial projects where unfortunately there may be land clearing involved, and it's up to me to say yes, I'm going to do that project, or no, I'm not. So I have to look into flora and fauna surveys and find out a lot about the land before I even say yes, I'm coming on board. So that's a lot of the research that I'm now lucky that I can do thanks to having an admin assistant. I've got that extra spare time. But there is still a lot of projects that I will say no to based purely on the land clearing, because at the end of the day, it goes against everything that I'm about.
Yeah, I'm totally understand what you say there, but I'm always a contrarian with some of these things too, Brendan.
Yeah.
I would think sometimes there might be some benefit if there's, as your profile grows, if you can do a project where there may be some land clearing involved, but then talk about it everywhere you possibly can, saying, you know, these bastards are still cutting down this stuff or bulldozing this stuff, that that in a way you can turn a negative into a positive. And if it's a corporate thing, for them, it might turn what they think is a positive into a bloody big negative, you know? So
the day that I did that would mean that it would be the last job I get, I would just say.
But in that sector, perhaps.
You know. Well, I definitely, you know, and I've looked into any corporate job that I now do. I would love to find a group that does plantings. So I would love to, anytime I work on a site that has some land cleared, I'd like to, you know, if I could,
make it part of your contract.
Exactly, and put that back somewhere else, and just say, if you want my painting, you are going to have to put this money into planting some trees somewhere that I request. Otherwise, you don't get me to do the painting.
Okay, well, that leads me to where I wanted to come to at the end, talking about new stuff, opportunities, raising money for conservation. Sally raising money for, you know, for wildlife rescue, rehabilitation, interactive signage, all that kind of stuff, which it gets tacked on, but sometimes doesn't get done well.
Yeah.
Now we're using new technology. You know, it's not that new, but 50 years ago, artists couldn't do what we're doing now, and then stick it up somewhere, and for it to last for another God knows how many years and how many people will see it. NFTs, stuff like that. Tell each of you. Tell me what you think.
What about NFTs? I can't work. I don't understand. Okay. I've read it. I don't get it. So
I'm trying to do less on the computer.
Okay. How about stuff like, you know, your images on merch that is there, that the selling of the merch is only to direct money to, for instance, Friends of the Western Ground Parrot, or and what got me interested in this is, have you seen those Botanica ads on TV at the moment where they're saying, oh, we're putting money towards saving 20 of Australia's most endangered wildflowers and whatnot. And I'm thinking, all right, maybe you're putting 1 cent or something, or 2 cents per whatever, towards something, but they don't explain where it goes. Like, they're not saying to Kings Park's breeding program or a seed bank or anything like that.
Yeah.
And all it's just like total greenwashing. And for me, maybe the people at Botanica have got the best intentions, but I don't know what you're bloody well saving. So, and you're not explaining it, and you're not putting a link to something on. So it's just an ad saying, we're good, love us, buy our shit, you know.
Yeah, it's just ticking a box. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know, I get annoyed.
Maybe we're being too harsh. I think that it's better that they're saying something like that than not saying it at all and not giving a toss about it.
But
I think
is it?
maybe they are
But
doing but maybe they're actually doing something.
But here's my point though, Sally. Is it? I mean, I have to get involved with their brand to save those 20 species. I don't know what the 20 species are unless I go to their website and check out what they're doing, or I buy their product and read a box. So I would have been more impressed if they said, last year we gave $50,000 to Kings Park breeding program. Aren't we good corporate citizens, right? If that was on the ad or something, I would think, good on you, Botanica. But no.
Maybe Hemsworth will be saying exactly that because you said this.
Well,
we're talking about it, aren't we?
Well, we're talking about it, but I'm not being positive about it, because most of these things generally are. Remember the dolphin stuff on tuna, and then if you chase it down, you find out it was like 0.05 cents or something for every 2,000 tins sold or something. So over a year, they've given $1,000 or $2,000 or something to something. You know, for a company of that size, that's 0.00000000001% of their global profit. Piss off, you know. Yeah. That's my view. You don't need to be associated with that view, but to me, that's like a billionaire giving $500,000 to something is less significant than someone who's unemployed given $50, right? It's just, but we are lauding stuff that is easy to do. But as Brenton, you said before, we're still cutting down habitat that we can't replace. We can't replace it in 100 years, even if we set land aside and raise funds and all that. We just got to stop doing the bad stuff and then attaching goodness to second-rate solutions. That's my view. Right, who wants to read out Nicole's lovely comment?
Oh, there's a nice comment. I'll read it. Love Brenton's comment, the hope for art-saving species, and Sally's empowering statement about not necessarily making a big change, but making a change. Thank you all. Thank you, Nicole.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole.
Yeah, thanks for being positive, and because I'm always going to be a grizzle guts about this kind of stuff. Because I just get annoyed that it's really easy, and it's really easy to do stuff that doesn't have any effect, and that's what disappoints me. I mean, look, let me get right out there. Look, all these groups have got comms people and whatnot, you know, raising awareness. We've got a comms team, but no one's producing any content with any bloody information. It's all PR. It's all branding, and that kind of upsets me. If anyone doesn't know, I'm a grumpy old man, because resources are so hard to get in conservation, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, is there a full-time staffer is there someone doing full-time practical conservation work for the western ground parrot actually on the ground in the habitat? I don't know, because it's all a bloody secret.
Yeah, there's a lot of volunteers. There's
Yeah,
definitely a lot of volunteers, but they're always asking for help.
But that's the point I'm making, Brenton, is that all these conservation efforts nowadays, governments of all colours and sizes are doing the stuff based on other people giving their time.
Yeah. You have to be personally invested and care for something to put the time in. So that just shows you how many people care about these things that need help. They just don't have that care factor. So unless you have that care factor.
But we have organisations that have the responsibility to protect these things, right?
Yeah.
They're called governments. They're called departments of conservation. Yeah. We got national ones.
They will do it to the species that draw tourism.
But that's not how the laws are drawn. Yeah. That's not where the responsibility lies. It's not. Yeah. We have the responsibility to save red birds, not green birds, right? So where I get frustrated. And look, people have probably heard me say it 1,000 times if they follow any of my stuff, that conservation shouldn't be based on volunteers, right? If you can find $40 billion in JobKeeper to give it to companies that don't need it, what was it? 14. All of the government, all the private schools that got JobKeeper didn't need it. That money could have gone to buying habitat, so it didn't need to get cleared, and actually done something. And that's where my frustration is, that we're always saying, oh, it's too expensive, we can't find any money, and we just pissed $40 billion out against the wall, giving it to Harvey Norman when he didn't need it, right? Or Jerry Harvey, not Harvey Norman. So that's the kind of stuff that makes my blood boil. And I don't know. And then everyone wants you, Brenton, and you, Sally. Can you give us a free picture that we can auction off to raise money? That's the kind of request I'm sure you get. Right? Yeah. Whereas you think, why the bloody zoo has got an interactive centre for something? Why can't they find $20,000 a year for the volunteers to do stuff? Why should people be having to give up their time? And and please, I'm not being super critical of the zoo or the Friends of the Ground Parrot. It's just that situation that we've all found ourselves in, that everyone who loves the birds or the plants or the quolls or the quokkas or the dingo, or there's just so many, the paddy melons, the bandicoots, the antichinuses, the corroboree frog, it's the Mary River turtle. There's just so many examples of where people are having to give up their time to do something that the government should be doing, while they're talking about building a bloody $1 billion dam. That's the thing that frustrates me. Tell us in the comments whether I'm just a grumpy old bastard and should shut up, right? Because
I think there's another 1,000 of you out there, Grant. I'm pretty sure there will be another 1,000 of you.
There's got to be 50,000 of us. Actually, I should be in a better mood because we've kicked the bastards out on the weekend, right? Sorry, I don't want to be too political, but we had a threatened species recovery hub, and this makes me feel better. Thanks, Nicole. Totally agree. That makes me feel better, because sometimes I feel like I'm shouting into a bloody a hurricane, but the country did something good, for so many reasons. But hopefully conservation's going to have a chance in the next little while. But I'm a bit concerned, and I'll tell you why. All I've heard in the last few days is climate change, climate change, climate change, climate change. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I haven't heard anyone whispering, biodiversity, 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 biodiversity. So I'm a little bit concerned that there'll be all these targets and that, Andrew Forrest will have his hand out for some hydrogen money and Woodside will be looking for something and all the electricity companies will all be looking for some public money to do something with photovoltaics and wind farms, which is all needed. But I'm still not hearing anyone say, biodiversity, biodiversity, let's stop cutting down our old growth forests in Victoria. Dan Andrews, Lily D'Ambrosio, stop it, For an industry that supports less people than shop assistants selling Tats Lotto, And I don't hear anyone saying, save the Tats Lotto, save the retail workers. I don't hear anyone saying that, but 300 people who cut down trees, all of a sudden we can't afford to pay them out. It's anyway, there we go. Thanks, Nicole, for your support because by jingos, I'm getting old and grumpy, and I've been shouting this stuff since 1984. I've been saying the same thing for that long,
That's where the feeling of helplessness comes in, isn't it? You just sort of think progress is.
Yeah. Well, I'm overdoing nothing about it, which is why I decided to. I thought about making a podcast I thought about starting this in 2014. It took me until 2020 to actually do my first interview and actually put the thing out. And now I try and put something out every day. And hopefully it shifts the needle somewhere. But I can't talk to decision makers because all they want to do is talk to people who will go, isn't that fantastic what you did? I'm not even on the mailing list of the people who announce that they released captive bred orange-bellied parrots. Who's a natural ally? Channel 10? Channel 10 or me, Anyway, it's enough whinging. I don't want to criticise people either, but I don't want to criticise them. But Jesus Christ, sorry, I'm going to get assassinated for that. It just seems nuts, There's so many people who want to do stuff and want to help, and it's all captured now with comms and PR and what'll look good and everything. And really all we need to do is share information and help people do the right thing. All we have to do is do the right thing.
Yeah.
Sarah Woodisfield. Have I pronounced that right? Sarah Woodisfield. Is that the right thing? Thank you for the Facebook love. I don't know if that was a thumbs up or a heart. Is that your daughter? Oh, well.
My daughter is at UA, and she's involved with the magpie research. How clever they are. They're not. They're out in the wild. They're not captured or anything like that.
Is that the project about the songs, the magpie vocalizations?
I don't know if it's that specific. They're checking their cognition. It's very interesting.
So that's Sarah, right? Yeah.
Sarah, yeah.
Sarah hit me up. Sarah hit me up. News at birdemergency.com. News at birdemergency.com. I want to talk about the magpie project, and there's a Willy Wagtail one I think going on over there too, and I want to talk about that. So yeah. Well, gang, I think we've taken up more than enough time of these working artists. Need to go and
building up.
That's right. Beep, 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 going on. I'd really like to talk to you both again, perhaps a little bit more about process. Great. There we are. Sarah's just told us this is who's project it is. Amanda Ridley's research lab. Okay, well, still do send me something in the email about it all, Sarah, if you could. I'd love to know. Brenton, been good to finally get.
It's been a while.
Get the eyeballs on each other. It has. It's probably been about 18 months or so that we've been. Oh, it's Amanda Babler's research. Oh, there we go. That's right, isn't it, Sarah? Thumbs up if I'm right, Amanda Babler, or is that? No, I think Amanda Babler's the African one. No, I think I've got that wrong.
Amanda Ridley.
Yeah. Sally, thanks. Really enjoyed meeting you too. And
see you both. I've already met Brenton because I stalked him one day when he came near here.
Perth is very small, but it's amazing how many artists don't talk to each other. So Sally popped past one day when I was painting a mural, so it was nice to meet her properly.
Go and check him out.
Yeah.
And before we do the where can I find you and all that stuff, which you've got to do at the end, it's obligatory at the end of anything like this. Nicole, thanks. I'm glad that I always feel ranty and shouty and grumpy and whatnot when I get fired up, but God, it's just
frustrating.
Actually, read that out for me, Brendan, just so that when we do the audio release, that people will know what Nicole's on about.
Yeah, so Nicole's just said, thanks, Grant. It's been fascinating and so inspiring. Share information and do the right thing.
Fantastic. And that was on Facebook, I think, because you can interact. That's the whole point of doing these things. I love it when people have something to say. I don't mind if you want to bag me out, because I'm happy to take on I'm happy to discuss anything that we're talking about.
At the end of the day, being passionate is better than not being passionate. So,
that's right, because we could be down having a Palmer and a pot in the pub watching daytime television and going, gee, Prue McSween, she's a genius. What's Sarah told us? Babbler and Magpie research. Great, thank you. That would be good. Effects of climate change and heat stress on cognition. Fantastic. That's exactly what we're all about, finding out the research that people are doing and getting it off some behind a paywall journal site, and we talk about it and it's out there and anybody can learn and know and get interested. That's what the Bird Emergency is all about. Brenton, where can people look up your stuff?
So I'm on most social media platforms. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Just type my name in, Brenton See, and it will come up. I'll
put all the links on the page that we've got up for this little chat, which is thebirdemergency.com/art. Sally, what about you? What would you like people to look at? And tell us what can they do to help out the centres. You better send me the info for those too, and I'll put those links up.
I will. So if they want to support the centres, if you go onto my website, sallyedmonds.com, there are prints on there which say profits donated. They're either for Kanyana or Karakin. If you buy one of those prints through the website, all the profits will go to either of those centres. I cover my costs just for the print, basically. And then I'm on Instagram at Sally Edmonds Art and Facebook Edmonds Art. I'm not on Twitter yet. I will be.
Oh, you're going to get onto Twitter. I just put now. If you're listening, eventually. Sarah's put the Babbler Research website up, so it's https:// all that stuff, www.babbler-research.com if you're interested in that project before we get around talking about it and whatnot. So please get into that. You can check me out on Twitter. Lots of ranty stuff. I get a lot of politics if I see stuff that needs to be said at Bird Emergency, not the Bird Emergency, but the Bird Emergency is my Instagram. And, of course, the website is thebirdemergency.com. Took about 15 minutes to say all that, to say goodbye, but it's that time of the day. Thanks, Sally. Thanks, Brenton. Thanks everyone for joining in. That's great. Thanks for the Nicole, Sally, and Ramona Sandonat. Thank you. It's always great to get... we've got another bit of love too. And Catherine Rowe. Thank you. Okay. The edited version of the audio will go out in the podcast feed eventually, but you can share this around thebirdemergency.com/art. The video will be there as soon as it's finished processing on YouTube later on. Thank you.
Cool. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thanks, Grant. Nice to see you, Brenton.
Nice to see you, Sally.
Bye everyone.